Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of One Take because life has no rehearsal. Today, I am beyond honored to bring a real icon of an industry. Rochelle Newman Carrasco was one of the principals for Walton Isaacson. Today, she is the EVP and cultural storyteller. Everybody knows my predilection for storytelling. I believe it is the only way to communicate and a huge loss to the advertising industry. She's taking about 40% of her time to work on her own projects, not the advertising, her own project. Big loss to the advertising agency. I mean, to the advertising world. Rochelle, welcome. It's a real honor to have you here. So let's jump right in.
Thank you, Marcelo.
We've
It's a
had,
pleasure to be here.
no, we've all had like 10,000 moments by the
Mhm.
time we get to be our age. Easy moments in which we could have done this or could have done that and whatever. But there's always like a defining professional moment, something that says, oh, this created me. It could be now, it could be then. What was that one for you?
Wow. Oh, well, when you say it like that, this created me. I have to say that I was a theater major in college, and I'm a New Yorker who lived in LA, came back to New York. I came back to New York and I started looking for a job, and I first wanted to continue my waitressing because that's what actors do. But New York waitressing was heavy duty, it was really serious. So I started to look in the New York Times in the classified ads. And I answered an ad for a Girl Friday, which is what they used to call us back in the day, kind of do everything. And I wound up walking into the apartment on the Upper East Side of Pedro Font, a man who would then, yeah,
I know Pedro Font really
of
well.
course
Yeah.
you do. Of
Everybody
course
knows
you
Pedro Font.
do. Well, I was the first employee before they ever opened even an office of Font Vaamonde. And and I tried to quit the first week I was there. I was the girl Friday, and his wife, Sharon, now named Mary, that's a long story. She changed her name. Uh, I said, I don't understand him. I grew up, I'm not a Latina. I grew up on the Lower East Side of New York, so I learned Spanish in school, in grade school. So I spoke, and then I had continued in Spanish. And I said, I don't understand him in any language because, and I don't like to imitate accents, but I will imitate him. Rachel, you need explication por qué the mercado hispano es one sleeping gigante. And he would say these things, and I would be like, what, huh? But she said, give it a chance. And that deciding moment to give it a chance, because I was an actress and a writer, and I started to understand him. He basically added ation to every verb. If it was grabar, to record, it was grabation. So, oh, okay, grabation is to record. Great. So I would take notes and I would turn his presentations into something to go to new business pitches with. And because I was an actress and not really invested in advertising yet, it was like theater. So the decision to stay and put on a little business suit, which was a costume, and go out and present. And our first account was Fabergé. That was the change. That was the pivotal moment where I wound up being one of the early next gen people in US Latino marketing. And not to toot my own horn, but why not? I put in a lot of hours, and I became recognized as one of the change agents of US Latino marketing in the United States after, spending that little new business pitch became one of the biggest agencies in the US Latino scene, working with Procter and Gamble, getting bought
Yeah.
by Gray Advertising. They moved me back west, even though I wanted to stay in New York, and became president of the West Coast office. And then I opened my own co-founded a firm called Enlace Communications, and we had a 15-year run. So yeah, that was that change. That little classified ad. It said it's a Girl Friday, Spanish helpful but not necessary. And
Oh, he was, yeah, he was a legend and he was
yeah,
tough to deal with, actually.
rough to deal with, and well, there's all sorts of stuff. I mean, again, we could do a whole session
Yeah.
on Pedro Font, and I'd be happy to come back and do that, or we won't get to any other. He was rough to deal
No,
with, but you know what? He was brilliant. Like he was very difficult, and that was another changing moment, was to decide to put up with a lot of stuff that frankly I shouldn't have put up with,
Yes.
but to be able to be part of this, I understood on some personal level that I had become, because I'm not Latina, I had become this bridge for clients, and literally they would say, frankly, offensive things, but I used to think teachable moments were important. They would say things like, well, she looks like us, but she understands them. And I became this like bridge. Yeah, and it's like, really, people?
Yeah.
Really? But, we're talking 1980 something,
Yeah.
82, 83, 84. Yeah. And I stayed there for 15 years. Yeah, I was the first person ever to work at that agency,
Wow.
and it birthed many careers of people who are still in the industry today, and yeah, and then I started, like I said, co-founded my own agency, and then I was leaving. I kept trying to leave the industry because I was a writer and an actress. And then I wound up meeting Aaron Walton, who's an amazing, if you ever have the opportunity, an amazing, amazing human being, an amazing professional, Hall of Fame inductee. And I was leaving the industry and I was like, you know what? That's another change moment. This man I need to work with. I need to
Yeah.
work with Aaron Walton. And that changed my life also, because not only did I start his Hispanic marketing expertise area for the agency, working with Lexus, and I love that. But he also encouraged me to go, when it was time for me to go back to my passion of writing and acting that I started back in college. Um,
Well,
he
I,
gave
I
me he
totally,
gave me the permission.
you bring me to one of the most interesting aspects of this because I was kind of thrown in at some point in Hispanic advertising. I didn't like it, to be honest.
Mhm.
I thought it was a ghetto. I wanted international. No, I wanted
Yeah, yeah,
international, not international. That's it.
understood.
Everybody has, different paths.
Hmm.
But for people who are listening to the podcast and might not be completely aware of Hispanic advertising in the United States is a huge industry. It has created a lot of work, a lot of money, a lot of agencies. Um, at some point, some of us, I had this conversation with Jim Bryan. Some of us feel that Hispanic agencies lost a huge opportunity to be, instead of like a grand advertising agency, a more focused, highly targeted. But it could be anything, because once you understand one segment,
Hmm.
it's easy to understand other segments. So it could have easily been, instead of Hispanic, it would be Hispanic plus, I don't know, techies or nerds or whatever. But it is a huge, huge industry that has its own everything, its own theories, its
Hmm.
own media. Univision and Telemundo, for example, are probably the largest examples of media in Spanish. It's a completely different universe. So let's focus on that, because
Okay.
that is an industry that a friend of mine said, and I won't say who, like he was famous. He said, "Oh my God, Hispanics are like Brazil. Brazil is always called the country that will, the country of the future, and it will always be. And the Hispanic market is being always called, like we are, the future, and we'll always be. Like we never
Yeah,
get there.
never
But
get.
it is still a big, huge, huge industry, and it has changed a lot from the animals like Luis Diaz Albertini, with whom I worked for a while,
Yeah.
who was an animal. Font, like all of these guys, they were powerful guys. What changed in the Hispanic market did you not predict at all? What change caught you by surprise?
I, I, I have to say, and it makes me sad, to be honest with you. The change that caught me by surprise is that 40, I came in 82. So what are we, 44 years later?
Yeah,
And particularly in this climate that we're in, which is not the first time we've been in this climate. Well, but in terms of the way, what's caught me, let me just say it clearly and straightly.
go for it.
Yeah, what's caught me by surprise is the is the lack of growth, that the ignorance, I call it I don't remember what I call it. It's chosen ignorance. You know, there used to be ignorance because you really didn't know, like you really didn't know. And so I'm not saying that people shouldn't learn, but people know. And all along, again, probably because I'm not Latina, in fact, definitely because I'm not Latina, people would say things to me. Oh, I remember I was at a Domino's Pizza franchisee meeting once, and the numbers went up about zip codes and density of Latinos in zip codes. And I heard one person say to another, and this is like, again, in the early 90s by then, oh, I'm calling my real estate agent because I don't want to live in that community that's getting so densely Hispanic. The things that got said, the lack of progress, like you said, I love the way you just phrased that, of the future always. If you look at the Time magazine, I once did this exercise, it's worth doing. Time magazine covers on Hispanic. It's like sleeping giant used to be the phrase, you know,
Yeah.
and then it was the immigrants, and then it was the you know, the boom, the Latin boom, and you line up the covers and they're all full of promise and potential, and they go nowhere. And they
Yeah.
go nowhere. The community obviously goes. I'm not speaking about the community. I'm speaking about the non-Latino community uh, understanding of the Latino community and in all its diversity, because really it's like, again, it used to be, I'm in Panama right now, right? So I'm in Panama. My husband's Afro-Latino. And I don't, when people say, well, what's Panama like? It's like, you know, there's a thing called Google, and it has lots of pictures and lots of images that didn't exist before, you know, because everyone is like, oh, why don't, you know, Panamanians eat what Mexicans eat? And what is a Mexican? Like, what's Chicano? Is that a bad word or a good word? There's a lot of nuance, you know, but my point is that there's this conscious ignorance, this selective ignorance to just stay to, to not understand this community when this community is so vibrant, so huge, so important. And and now even the Latino community and the industry has regressed to a point where I think even when I came in 1982, I think we were further ahead than we are now, because people um, are now choosing to not say anything, to not have an active voice in the ICE situation, in the deportation situation. I know that's not just affecting Latinos, of course, it's affecting other people as
Yeah.
well. But anyway, so it the change I did not expect is that we would be just static, more than static, regressive. I didn't predict the regression and the lack of true interest in people who we call consumers, but these
Yeah.
are we're people, neighbors, and the Americas, you know,
Yeah.
this sort of supremacist. Yeah, I didn't anticipate that. I didn't anticipate the supremacist sort of perspective. And I'm talking sort of the American supremacists, because you know there are white Latinos too. I mean, white is not you know, white is
Yeah. You're
not.
white.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
white.
white. Yeah, I mean, I also, don't get me, I'm Jewish. It's Passover. My husband's Catholic, so don't get me started on the Jewish conversation. 'Cause that's and there are Jewish Latinos, by the way. I am not one of them, but
Oh
there
yeah.
are, you know.
Oh yeah. My
So
best friend when I lived in Puerto Rico was
yeah,
Litovich. I
yeah,
mean,
there you go. Or
I
Felipe
mean, yeah.
Corzeni, one of the founding research members of Latino marketing. Felipe Corzeni is Mexican Jewish. So I think I'm answering your question. My point is that I truly thought we were moving forward. We could argue, certainly. In fact, I welcome the argument, because I think we never gave enough credence. In order to make it simple for non-Latinos, we had to dumb stuff down, and we had to be like, okay, let's aggregate Latinos. Let's not talk about the nuances of, you know, this, like a Panamanian versus, you know, or even
Yeah.
like, yeah, like Chicano, even like Mexico's huge, right? So you can, oh no, they're all Mexicans. Like, what is it, you know, or Mexican Americans, or we, and marketing has a habit of doing this. I mean, this is not necessarily only about Latinos being sort of aggregated, but I think the industry had and has issues with its own ability to look at the identity of Latinos for in their entire form. And
No, I think
yeah,
they had a huge failure in like how they looked at some of them. I told Gene one day that the Latino, not the Latinos, the Spanish language advertising industry
mhm.
itself reminded me of a famous phrase from Winston Churchill when he described some kid and he said, "Oh, that kid, he's got a great future behind him." So, which I
Yeah,
love some of the Winston Churchill stuff. I mean, like
yeah,
seriously, but it did it. So let me ask you then, point blank, the fact
yeah.
that you remain a bit,
Mhm,
hopefully more than a bit, at Walton Isaacson
mhm,
or Isaacson, and
mhm.
you are now dedicating more time to your own projects. Is that also part of a reaction towards the present Hispanic advertising, or
Yeah,
you just got tired of
it,
it?
it is, and I like I said, I had to. I remember when I interviewed for Aaron, and a mutual friend, guy named Rob Rosenthal, who used to work at SSCMB. He was an account executive, and fast forward like 35 years, he knew Aaron. Aaron was looking for someone to start Hispanic expertise. Lexus, they had Lexus for Black and for LGBTQ, and we had breakfast, and I said, Aaron, I got real serious. I said, Aaron, I need you to know I take Hispanic marketing extremely seriously. I'm not a big fan of agencies that like to add check boxes, and that was happening a lot, right? It was like, we're a
Oh, I
multicultural
remember.
agency, so we have one Asian and one Latina, and da 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 da. I said, Aaron, I take this seriously. I am not interested, blah, 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 blah. And he said, Rochelle, have you looked in a mirror lately? And I had no idea what he was talking about. I thought maybe I had something in my teeth. It was breakfast. Like, what's good? Have you looked in a mirror lately? And then he said, because if I wanted to hire the poster child for, these are paraphrasing his words, but if I wanted to hire the poster child for Latino marketing, it wouldn't be you. And I was like, well, you have a point there. Like
Yes,
that,
and a very good
that,
point.
that's a real point. And basically what that said to me was, this is a man who gets it, who is willing to look at expertise, and also I really believe that the interconnection, like I said, I grew up on the Lower East Side, which is Little Italy, Chinatown, the Jewish community,
I
the
know it
Black
really
community,
well.
the Greek community. So so I grew up thinking that bumping into other cultures was what everybody did, right? And I'd never worked in an agency that was not just purely Hispanic marketing or Latino marketing. And Aaron offered me an opportunity to forge a new path and try to find a new conversation between the intersection of culture and to specialize. Like, I believe that you need specialists in Latino marketing, and it's yes, and you need specialists in Latino marketing, and you need Latinos to intersect with other communities and groups because there's a cross pollination and a cross fertilization. And I really truly found and continue to find Walton Isaacson's vision approach to open up new possibilities of reframing and rethinking things. And even though I personally needed to move on, it because I reached that if not now when, like,
Right.
you can't spend your whole life going, I'm an actress and a writer but never write or act anymore. It's I did a little here, I did stand up, I did all sorts of stuff, um but even though I had to step away from part of that, I just truly admire the work that's being done there. And yeah, so I'm not just holding on to a past version of what
Right.
it is to be there. I'm really um, I, I feel like I'm in an innovative space that at least you can at least have this conversation. Not everybody can even just have this conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's one conversation that I also want to have, which
Yes.
is hiring people.
Oh,
You
yeah.
got hired, you know, white Jewish East, Lower East New York gets hired for a Hispanic agency.
Yeah.
Evidently, they felt, wow, she brings value. Otherwise, you don't hire people.
Correct.
If you feel that they don't add any value, you just don't do it.
Hmm.
So let me ask you, because normally I ask, what would you say, to a CEO who's, hiring different people about the value of, like older workers. But I'm not going to ask you that. You have hired, like I have hired, hundreds of people,
Hmm.
and we have fired hundreds of people. It is, it
Sadly.
is, it
Yeah.
is yes,
But
sadly,
sometimes
but
not sadly. Yeah. Sometimes it's not sad to,
no,
sometimes
no,
people
no.
need to be
Sometimes it's
hired.
an
Yeah.
absolute joy, like, oh, I get rid of that guy. But
It's
you
true.
have hired hundreds of people.
Yeah.
So let's say you're looking at different candidates, different ages. What does an older candidate have to say or have to do for you to say, yeah, I'm hiring this person? What do I have to say?
For me, I mean, if it's
Yeah, yeah.
me, and
For you as the
I like
leader
to
of an agency.
I like to believe I'm being honest about this, because you never know until you have unconscious bias too. But I truly believe that candidate has to do what any candidate has to do, which starts with, I always tell people, you need to talk to me about what you bring to the equation. Too many people interview in a way that is trying to please me or
Yeah,
project into, but people of age, you used an
yeah.
acronym. Can I may I
POA.
use your
Yeah.
acronym POA? Um, the vast amount of experience, right? So so on the one hand, there's this sort of bias that the person's going to be stuck in their ways, that they're overqualified. That's so we have to get rid of stuck in their ways, overqualified. But those are all perceptions that the person taking the person in may or may not have. And you do need to walk into a room aware of what perceptions could
Oh, yeah.
arise, and have the agility to navigate those things and counter those things, in terms of like why my vast experience is not stuck in nostalgia experience, right?
Right.
What am I doing to keep my chops, for lack of a better word, my skill sets, not only fresh but future focused.
Okay,
um
so that's really important. Future focus.
mhm.
How, and in the minute or so that we have, what do I have to say for somebody like you to say, yeah, that guy is future focused, even though he is 71 in my case?
Yeah.
And by the way, don't knock 71. My last fist fight was a knife fight, Bar Nancy, when I was 69. So I take no prisoners. But
Oh my goodness.
how do I prove, as an older person, how do I prove to somebody like you that I'm future focused? 5 words or six.
The
I don't know.
four six, 5 words or six, or
Or
can it be a
whatever.
sentence or individual words?
Whatever
First of
you
all,
want.
first of all, that the art, not just the arts, but that your life is bigger, that is in touch with contemporary culture, that
Great.
you
I
are
love that.
that you are a not only a sponge, that it comes to you and you absorb it, but also a seeker. You travel, you read, you go to movies that are of relevance, and you can go to see an old movie and turn it into a conversation about what's going on in contemporary culture and in the future. I like storytelling. So
Yes, me
tell
too.
me a story that makes you the narrator on the cusp of seeing things that we are not seeing. In black there's Afrofuturism, for example, or there's, Ursula Le Guin in science fiction. There's, I'm not saying make up some fabricated story, although that's nice too. But I am saying, what are you seeing? Tell me what you're seeing that you believe is of value to a current and future conversation about whatever role we're being hired for. So have that
That's,
sort of worldview.
that's absolutely brilliant. I love it. That's gonna
Okay.
be like the pod.
Can we make
I absolutely
T-shirts?
love it. Yeah, I'm thinking about some of the t-shirts.
Go
So
for it.
but I want one. Your gray matters.
I
I
think
need to
that's
do that.
an excellent. I
Yeah,
love it. I love words, so I love when they come together in an
yeah.
interesting new fashion. Yeah,
But that is absolutely brilliant. So thank you. Enjoy Panama.
I will do that.
Uh,
Come visit. I'll be back in LA. I'm splitting my everything is
oh,
being split. My whole life is a bunch of
let me
fragments
tell
in
you,
a good way.
I have enjoyed Panama a lot. It's a great country,
It is.
except in size and in population. Otherwise, absolutely great. I mean, I I've been all over Panama, and I've been to the canal. I've been all over the place. I absolutely love Panama. So enjoy it.
Thank
Go
you.
out for beers, and then I'll see you. And if you go to LA and stop by Miami, let me know.
I will do that. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you very much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. Bye bye.
Bye.